everyone. Welcome to another online open studio. My name is Liesl Hartman and I work in the Center for Arts Education at the Zeitz MOCAA. The Zeitz MOCAA is a museum of contemporary art from Africa and it is located in Cape Town in South Africa. We have presented 8 of these online open studio videos to you. Activities for children at school and at home, for parents and for teachers as well, and we hope that you've really enjoyed it. Today, our practical activity is inspired by another artist in our museum called Athi-Patra Ruga, and he has a work in the museum at the moment called Public Service Announcements, which he made in 2014. It's actually a video piece, and I'll be chatting to you a little bit about his work in a minute. Athi-Patra Ruga is a really interesting artist and his work has been very popular in the museum as well. He often makes works which have bright psychedelic colors, which he says he uses to attract his audience to really look at his work. He likes to introduce fun elements like flowers and balloons, and he does this by creating these imaginary worlds with interesting characters, and the spaces that he creates often look like these idyllic spaces which are full of flowers and foliage and strange creatures and characters as well. Now he does this for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons that he does it is to teach us that the world is not always an idyllic place. It's not always that world filled with paradise, with beautiful flowers and interesting animals, but it's a place where we are often unkind to each other and where we hurt each other. And so he's asking us really to think about the things in the world which are not perfect. Now, Athi-Patra Ruga, as I've said before, often uses flowers in his work, whether it is that he's making videos or photographs, or sometimes even uses it in sculpture. Now, why does he do that? Let's think about what a flower means to us. We often give flowers to people as a gesture to show them that we care about them or that we love them. Sometimes we do it because we want to remember something special about that person. And one of the things that Athi does is that he creates sculptures and he often covers them with layers of flowers in gold and incredible colors and often brightly colored beads. And he does this to remember important people that have done important things in society. So today we are going to make a flower in honor of his work, and we're going to create a paradise flower. We're going to imagine that this flower comes out of one of Athi-Patra Ruga's imaginary worlds. And it's loosely based actually around a South African flower called the protea, which is our national flower, but we're going to do some really interesting and decorative things to it. Right guys, now to make these beautiful paradise flowers, I've got a couple of examples here that I've made, and you can see they're all slightly different and made with different kinds of paper. So paper is going to be the material that we use. And again, you can go around your home looking for bits of newspaper, bits of scrap paper that we can paint and make colorful in different ways. And let me just tell you about the materials that you're going to need. So you're going to need pieces of newspaper, which is really easy to find, hopefully. And if you don't have newspaper, you can also use bits of magazine paper. You're going to need 3 or 4 sheets of just ordinary white A4 paper. Again, I'm using my paint like I often do. We're going to need a scissor for cutting. And importantly for this exercise, we need little bits of masking tape or sellotape. And you can see that in preparation, I've torn some of my tape already, and I've got a bit of painter's tape also to help me just to secure the areas that need to be reinforced. And then importantly for this activity, you may also need a little bit of craft glue. Okay, so what you can do is get your materials together in the meantime, and then we can start our activity. Right guys, now that you've collected your materials together, we are ready to start. And what you can do first, if you don't have colored paper of your own, is you can make your own colors if you've got little bits of paint or even bits of oil pastel as well. So I've just taken an ordinary piece of white paper and I've just painted it in the colors that I want to, and I've kind of been inspired by the color of protea petals, which I quite like. Remember, we said our paradise flower is going to be loosely based on a protea, which is South Africa's national flower. So I'm just taking a little bit of my paint and just really in any direction on your piece of paper, and I'm going to combine my reds and my pink colors. and get a nice range of those nice rosy colors. But as I said, obviously you can do this in any color that you like. So you can introduce blues or yellows if that's what you'd like your flower to be. And there we go. Now you can paint one side of the page or you can paint both sides if you want your petals to have a color on either side of it. Right, and while those pieces of paper are drying, we're going to set them aside and we're going to start constructing the flower itself. So step number 2 is we're going to start with the construction of the flower, and we start by making a stick, which is going to be the stem of the flower. Now, if you watched a previous video of our beautiful Thunderbird that Richard actually recorded for us a little while ago, he made similar sticks to actually make the structure of the body of the Thunderbird, and I'm going to show you how to do that again. So I've got a sheet of newspaper here, and I'm going to fold it so that it's nice and big. We want a nice long stem for our flower. And we are going to make a rolled paper stick, and these are really useful to do lots of things when we are constructing three-dimensional pieces of art. So the way in which we do this, we take the corner of the piece of newspaper and we just fold it over like that, and the reason why is that second piece of paper reinforces the stick and makes it really nice and hard. Okay, and the thinner and the harder your stick is, the more stable it is and the stronger it is to hold your flower. So we start out by making just a small fold on that line, and we try and make it as even as we can from the one side to the other. When you've done that, we make another fold and we can press that fold flat. And here you can ask moms or dads to help if you need extra fingers just to hold your folds down. You can also make shorter sticks out of smaller pieces of paper as well for your flower. It doesn't have to be as long as the one that we're making here. And maybe you can practice a little bit before you get this completely right. So I've just kept folding and keeping that fold nice and even, tight and small. And I want you to think about the stick as not being a straw. It hasn't got an open inside. The inside is quite tight and dense, and that's what makes that stick as strong as possible. And once I have done about 10 of these folds, sometimes a little bit more if I want it absolutely strong on the inside, then we can start rolling. And the trick here, guys, is to try and keep our fingers on that stick. Don't let it go. Don't let the paper roll back. And we just keep rolling, rolling, rolling. If it's easier for you to do it flat on the table, keep it on the table. I'm lifting mine so that you can just see the way that I'm doing that. But you can really keep going on the flat table as well. And you roll that stick without letting go. You have to have strong fingers until you get right to the end. And when you get to the end, you're going to take a piece of your masking tape or sellotape, whatever tape that you have, and you're going to stick it down to make your beautiful stick for your flowers. Now you will see that the middle of that stick is really strong and tight because there's lots of paper that's been rolled there, and the ends of the stick are softer, and that will bend a bit when you start putting a heavy flower on the end. So what we do is we fold over the soft bit and we reinforce that stick by just doubling it up at the end so that our stick is nice and strong. And you can use 1 or 2 pieces of masking tape just to make sure that it stays down really nicely. And there is our stem of our flower. Right, now that we've made our beautiful stem, we're now going to attach the inside of the flower, and this is really our kind of center and our bits that is going to create the center and the stability for the flower. So we really want to have a successful middle part, or this lovely cushion for the inside of our flower. And you can see here from the others, I've decorated that inside in different ways. Sometimes I've used brightly colored paper that I've painted. These are just bits of tissue that I've stuck over the newspaper and put some paint on it. For this one here, I've actually done something really different, and I've taken bits of wool and I've covered that inside. So you can be as elaborative and as decorative as you like. You could take lots of beads and you can stick them on your center part with some glue. It really is up to you how you want to do that. So I'm going to show you how to create that center structure, and for that you're going to need another 2 sheets of newspaper. So one and another one here, and we're going to start out just by simply scrunching that paper and rolling it into a nice ball. We keep it open there in the middle, and I'll show you why we do that in a minute. So you kind of keep a center where we want the end of our stem to go, and we're going to take our other piece of newspaper and we're going to cover our scrunched piece of paper. And the paper may tear a little bit. Don't worry, you can always fix it with a bit of masking tape. Right, so that gives you that ball. But what are we going to do with the rest of the paper? So we're going to take our stick, the one that we've turned over and reinforced, and we're going to put it into the center of our ball. That open little section in the middle, we're going to just put it right in there. And then we're going to wrap this paper, the rest of the paper, around our stick. Don't be too fierce with the stick because you don't want it to bend and collapse. And then we're going to take our pieces of masking tape and we're going to secure it so that it's nice and firm. And when you put your masking tape onto your paper, pull it slightly because masking tape is quite strong, and then you stick. Because when you stretch that masking tape, it actually holds things really firmly. So you stretch it a little bit. I'm actually pulling it with my finger and then I'm sticking it down. And you're going to add masking tape so that you go all the way down to the end. And if you want longer pieces of masking tape, like I've done with this one, I've taken nice long pieces of my blue tape here, and we just keep wrapping it and wrapping it around the end until all that newspaper is firmly stuck to the end. And remember, this is a paradise flower, guys, so there's nothing wrong with it having blue stems instead of green. I'm just going to take another piece of blue and just secure the newspaper at the top. The newspaper may tear a little bit, and that's okay, because you can just close it up with a piece of masking tape, which is also just really like sticky paper. And there we have the center, which is going to form the nice stable inside of the flower. Our next step, guys, is to create these beautiful stamens, or the inside of the flower with all these lovely sort of spiky feathery bits on the inside. And depending on how long or how short you make it, or the color that you make it, it will turn out differently. So let me show you how to do that. We actually make it from little bits of paper fringes. This one's been cut with really sort of thin strips. This one is slightly wider. I'm going to show you how to do two different versions of that. So again, we take a piece of paper and we simply cut it in half. I'm just going to fold it across this way. You can also fold your piece of paper that way. So depending on how short or how long you want your stamens, your folds can be different. For this one, I'm going to take the open side and I'm going to roll the paper towards the end, towards the folded side like that. There's a reason for me doing this, and I'll show you why in a minute. And then we're going to cut our stamens with our scissors. And you can see, because I've rolled the paper, it actually results in a kind of curled stamen. So you get that kind of effect, which is rather interesting and can be really nice. And you just keep cutting them as narrow as you can make them, all the way to the end. Right, and there we have some curled stamens. For this one, I'm going to show you how to do just straight stamens, and here we don't roll the paper, we just keep it really flat, and we simply just cut long pieces. Oops, some of that's fallen off. It's all right if that happens. And we just keep cutting it. All the way to the end. Be patient with it, don't be in a hurry. The thinner you cut it, the more beautiful it becomes when you wrap it around that center bit of the flower. We're almost at the end. Hold tight with your fingers, don't let go. And we've got the last thing. Right, and now I want to show you the two different effects when you attach it to your flower. So here's the beautiful curled stamens. You can either hold it towards the outside so that it curls out, or you can attach it towards the inside so that it actually curls over the center. So we just take a piece of our masking tape again and we attach it to the end, and we wrap, oops, and there you see my bit's torn off. I'm just going to put another piece on, and we just keep going from that part again, all the way around, around. We just roll it all the way around. And depending on the paper that you use, you'll get a different sort of effect. So that's the one where you've got curled paper. And the other one I'll show you with the straight pieces of paper. It gives you a completely different look. Just using the last bits of my tape now. And we're rolling around. And we keep going. And you can do as many layers of these as you like. Going to attach my other piece that I've pre-prepared. I'm going to take a bit of my blue masking tape this time. And we're going to keep twirling it around, and around until we've got it attached. And there are our beautiful stamens, our first layer of our flower. Right, and now we're going to get to the really beautiful part of our flower, which is to create beautiful petals, which can be long, spiky, rounded, any kind of shape that you like. And what we need is to have a circle. We work from a circle, and here's our beautiful painted paper that we've painted, and it's dried. This one I've painted on both sides so that our petal is brightly colored, but you can see some of my petals on my flowers have got perhaps color on the one side and not color on the back. So you can really choose how you want that done. Now, to get your circle, I just actually go around my house and I go and find circular things to make circles from. So here I've used a side plate, and you can use a bigger one. If you want bigger petals, you can use smaller ones. You can experiment with what works for you. So let's take our side plate. We're going to turn it onto our painted piece of paper. Let's put that one out of the way for now. Take a pencil and just draw your circle. And you may need 2 layers for petals, you may need 3, you may want to do 4. It really is up to you as to how you want to attach it, and you can put as many layers as possible. So I've drawn a circle there, and I have my white circle. I'm going to use some white petals, and I'm going to use pink petals as well. So let's put the plate out of the way. Now I've drawn my circle, and I'm going to cut it out on that line, going all the way around. And these bits that you cut away, guys, remember when we do our activities, we always keep our bits because we may want to add other bits and pieces and become really decorative at the end. So let's put that somewhere where we can get to it again. Now that we have our circle, we're going to take our circle and we're going to fold it over in half and then in quarters, and I do it one more time to make what looks like a little bit of a small sort of pizza slice. And how we do the petals is this. I'm going to turn it around on the video so that you can see it nicely. Is that I take my pencil and I do half a petal and then a full petal and then another half. Right, so from that corner it's down to make a half, a full petal in the middle and another one on the end. And then we're going to take our piece of paper and we're going to cut on those lines. And as I said, your petals can be rounded or pointed, any shape that you like. If you have a bigger circle or bigger pieces of paper, you can obviously make bigger petals as well. Right, and when we open up our circle, we have our first layer of petals. Now the question is, how are we going to attach that to the flower? And what we do is we take our scissor and we simply cut a bit of the end. Don't cut it too big, otherwise it will fall off and it will be difficult to attach. So first cut a small piece off, test it on your flower and then see how it fits. I'm now going to take my flower that I've made the stamens on and I'm going to put it through, and there is my first layer on my flower. And you can make as many of those layers. You can make them bigger, smaller. You can make them in different colors. I'm going to create another white layer and then I'm going to show you how to finish the flower off. Right guys, so now I've made the pink layer and I've cut out another layer from my piece of white paper, and some of those petals I've made rounded and some of them are slightly square. Really, you can do anything. Remember, this is a flower from paradise, so you can be as imaginative as possible. And when you put your other layer on, you just shift them around so that you can see both colors. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put some tape on the back of the flower so that it doesn't fall down. So we just take our tape again and we just stick it from the petal onto the stamen. Oops, I'm missing a spot there. Let's turn it around. Onto the petal and then onto the stem. Okay, it may take a little bit of maneuvering until you get it right. Be patient. Again, I'm just adding another bit of glue to secure all of these parts to my flower. Right, now if you want to finish your flower off really beautifully, remember I said you can do a number of things. So the first is that if you didn't want to have plain paper, You could take your petals, and I've used some oil pastel on these, and I've actually colored them in 3 different tones, and it really brings out the brightness if you use your lovely oil pastels like we do sometimes. You can make petals out of colored paper, so if you have wrapping paper or colored paper in different colors, here I've done a combination of newsprint paper and painted paper, plain white, so there are almost 4 or 5 layers of petals on that flower there. And for this flower here, I've actually added long strips from my cuts, my offcuts that I've had, and I've just stuck them into the middle, so it makes a beautiful contrast with some of the round petals on there. And for this flower, if we wanted to finish it off nicely, I've actually created what we call the calyx of the flower, so that we don't see all the tape, and I'll show you in a minute how to do that. And this is where we use our glue. So I'm just bringing over my bits of green paper that I've cut already. These were sort of leftover long strips that I cut out there. And for these ones, we just take a piece of paper. Again, we fold it up so that we make more than one calyx at a time. I'm just cutting them into the shape that I want them. And I've got 3 pieces like that. And then for this is where we need our glue. So I'm going to need a piece of newspaper, just to put our glue on, and we're going to use our craft glue here. And we simply paint it onto our, they call these sepals, right, for calyxes and not petals. And for these, we are going to just stick them onto the back, and you need to pinch it a little bit. The glue will make the paper a little bit soft if you've got thin paper. Mine's scrunching up a little bit. Right, and we're just going to go around until we've created a calyx on our flower. I'm going to glue a couple of them. That's my next one, and so on. And you keep going, guys, until you go all the way around and you've got a completed calyx like we have on this flower here. Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed creating your paradise flower with us today. Please send us some examples of the lovely work that you've created. Our open studio sessions will continue as we go forward, but we're producing them once a month as opposed to once every 2 weeks. But please keep looking out for them. We've got some lovely activities planned until the end of the year. We hope you have fun, and please join us again for another online open studio.